We're being portrayed as something that we're not. We're not.
Thank you for listening to
Yes,
us.
thank you.
Yes. I wanted to ask, why do you feel Jesse Jackson was sort of misguided in what he did today? I heard a lot of chants that implied you generally like him as a person, but that you think he was on the wrong side of this situation. Can you kind of explain that to us?
He had, he's fought with Martin Luther King for the equal rights in this country. He's always fought for freedom and civil rights everywhere in the world. And right now with this situation, he's standing on the wrong side of history because he's standing with people who support a murderous dictator. And that is exactly the exact opposite of which Mr. Jackson has always fought against. So we want him to know that these people are supporting a murderous dictator that is, our people don't have food, our people don't have water, our people don't have medicine, and the military, the people that support Maduro, they've run over tanks of the protesters. And so if he stands for freedom in this country, he must also stand for freedom in Venezuela. We don't want him to tarnish his name, the good name that he has made for himself, by supporting these people, because he is better than this.
Do you have any response to the police this time not blocking the food delivery? In the past, they've cut the sort of rope, and now this time Jesse Jackson shows up, and the police seem a little bit more hands-off, probably because of his presence. What do you think of how the police responded?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we were just talking about contacting the State Department because the eviction notice says that nothing can come in to the embassy.
Not everyone can trespass.
Nothing can come into the embassy. And so why now? Why was this allowed to go
They
on?
are violating
So
the
we're
border.
going to resort to all the channels possible to see why this was allowed.
Is there anything else anyone would want to add about that?
What he was saying, we are not what these people make us out to be. We are standing for the human rights of our people. We're standing for freedom and equality and justice in our country. We're here because most of us either had to flee or we had the opportunity to flee. And so we are here sending money to our families, and we are here to cry against these false information that these people are saying. We are here standing for the freedom of our people. And that is what we want.
This is our building, this is our embassy. All our documents, all our identity is inside of that building. That belongs to Venezuelan, it doesn't belong to them, okay?
For the last 2 weeks, the Venezuelan community here in DC has been enduring a horrible campaign of misinformation. We are not as they are portraying us. We are not we're not a right-wing mob or anything like this. We're Venezuelans. We are a group as diverse as you can imagine. Okay, we are proud of our heritage.
Kids, you have seen mothers, you have seen students, you have seen all ladies. Everyone has participated in this because we are a big community that we only are asking for our place back to us, that belongs to us.
So they say somehow we're privileged. Yes, we are somehow privileged because we're privileged to be in this country, in Washington D.C. But the less privileged in Venezuela, they don't have the opportunity to be here. The less privileged in Venezuela, they are crossing the borders, walking to Colombia, walking to Brazil, because they don't have the opportunity to be here. But they need desperately to get out of Venezuela because they have no food, they have no medicines, and this is not just something that started happening since the sanctions. This is not because of the sanctions. This is because a terrible economical situation caused by Maduro's regime.
It's political too, and this has been happening since 2014.
Yes.
It hasn't happened like a year ago. This has been happening since 2014.
Actually,
if you go back to 2014, when Leopoldo Lopez, he went to the law in Venezuela and he said, I'm willing to give my freedom for my country. And he was tortured, he was starved, and he was given everything it was possible. And now you see this.
Just to give you an example of why the current situation is not because of the sanctions. My grandmother had leukemia in 2013. Since 2013 until 2015 when she died. From the moment she got leukemia, we couldn't find medicines for her. We, thank God, we had the opportunity to buy those medicines in Colombia and bring them back to Venezuela. And thanks to that, she didn't die in 2013. But even in that moment, where the sanctions didn't start, sanctions started in 2017, okay? And those were sanctions on individual people. Sanctions on PDVSA, the oil company in Venezuela, started in this December, okay? So this has been going on for a while. Okay, this situation is been going on for a while, and this is not because of any sanctions. This is a political and economical. This is because of political and economical decisions of the Maduro's regime, and they are trying to kill people. This is a political decision of Maduro.
Thank you.
They can go inside and talk to you.
Do you mind? I'd love to keep talking if you.
There's an entrance down there.
The entrance. Okay. Yeah, we'll be there.
Michelle, nice to meet you.
So just so you know, this is live streaming. So what you're saying is going out exactly as you're saying.
Perfect.
The other thing that I wanted to ask is, so with 200 people watching, I'm sure that there are some people who are kind of on that side, or what have you. I'd love if you could kind of say what would you want people on the other side to know about this? People who sort of sincerely feel that they're, blocking a coup or what have you. Who
if you feel like this, just come here and talk to a Venezuelan. That's the only thing that we want. Ask a Venezuelan how their personal situation is, how their family is suffering this situation. Because I understand. I completely understand when Americans think that this is as simple as just a U.S.-backed coup or whatever, right? But this is not as simple as that. Okay, this is not just Trump trying to get into a country because of oil.
They have the right to protest, but not in here. What they are protesting, they can go someplace else.
Sincerely, our main goal has been from the start for them to come and speak to us, because we haven't had the opportunity to have the social media presence that they have. We've started our pages and we have our hashtags, and we're trying to inform the people before they make a decision that they know nothing about.
So where can people find those sort of channels?
We have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter pages called Ask a Venezuelan, and it's a website as well, askavenezuelan.com, Ask a Venezuelan on Twitter, everywhere. And this is where we're trying to spread the information that actually pertains to us, because the information that they're saying, they're simplifying a topic that is not, it's not black and white. It's not a black and white issue in the slightest. And as people from Venezuela, people who are familiar with the Constitution of Venezuela, people who have lived through it, we know it better than anyone. If somebody from a foreign country comes and tries to tell an American about our Constitution, there would be an issue. And so we feel the same way, because these are our politics that we're trying to defend. And regardless of what they stand for about U.S. sanctions, about U.S. imperialism, it has nothing to do with invading our embassy. And that's where we draw the line. That's where that's not fair and that's not right.
So one of the things that I see them, and it's hanging off the window there, that they try to bring up is this idea of let's have and they consider it to be a middle ground. I assume you would disagree, but the idea of handing the embassy over to a third-party country that's not the U.S. or Venezuela. What do you guys think of that idea?
I mean, of course, I prefer if Vecchio gets control of the embassy, but if that's the only way that we can solve this, if, I don't know, Switzerland or any other country has to take over the embassy in order for them to leave, okay, let's do that. But just leave, because this is our embassy, okay? And it's not only about them being in our embassy. They are in our embassy and they are supporting a regime that is a dictatorship. Okay? So it's not only that. It's not only the fact that they are inside of the embassy and controlling our embassy, Venezuelan territory.
Because you can protest, because they're protesting,
right.
They're against U.S.'s policies, which is fine. A lot of people are against U.S.'s policies. But being in there is not the way to do it. They can come and protest outside. They have no reason to be inside our embassy and having access to our documents, stealing things from the embassy, as one of the protesters did when she was leaving. There's no reason for them to be taking our stuff, using the resources that are inside the embassy for their personal gain. Before they were quote-unquote locked in there, they were using the embassy to have meetings and to host things about things that had nothing to do with Venezuela. And that's just unfair. That's not right. That's not what the embassy is for. You can have meeting spaces, but not inside a territory that's not for them.
We as Venezuelan right now, we cannot have a passport right now because our embassy is closed. Belongs to those people who are not Venezuelan.
So I've heard Medea saying that, why are we giving why do we want the embassy to be in control of Vecchio? He will not be able to give you passports or anything like this. Before, the Maduro regime was not giving us passports either. Imagine, so for the people who are watching us, imagine that you are in a different country, in a foreign country, and you are outside, your passport is expiring, and you cannot get a new passport. Imagine how that feels. That's the case of every one of us, okay? Because Maduro decided that if you are outside of the country, you have no right to get a passport.
Come back.
So this is not fair. We want We want an embassy and we want to set up diplomats that represents the interests of the Venezuelan diaspora that is outside of Venezuela. Okay, it's as simple as that. And also, just continuing to what you were saying, if they want to handle this embassy to a third party, fine. A different country, fine. Okay, but because it's fine if they want to fight against imperialism, if they want to fight against U.S. policies, that's perfectly fine. They have the right to do that. Okay, but we draw the line when they continue and support Maduro.
When they yell things like Chavez lives and Maduro's
Right.
regime is alive, that's a slap to every single Venezuelan's face who has suffered from this personally, who has had grandparents who haven't had access to healthcare, whose kids have died because in schools there's no food, and that's a slap to everyone's face. They have no idea what they're really yelling. They haven't lived through it. They don't know what they're saying.
Right. You have every right to be against imperialism, but you have no right to tell Venezuelans what to do with their country. We Venezuelans, the majority of the Venezuelans, want a change in Venezuela. So they cannot be here taking our embassy and also supporting a dictatorship, supporting a regime that is killing people. It's literally killing people.
It seems like one of the sort of fundamental disagreements. This is something, as I've been here for like 2 weeks, right? The disagreement seems to be that both sides seem to believe that the other side is kind of supporting imperialism, right? So on their side, they seem to think that Guaidó is a result of U.S. intervention, and then on your side, you're saying, well, literally, there's Americans in our embassy. Do you see Guaidó as a result of U.S. foreign policy?
Guaidó is the result of our constitution. Guaidó, when there's Maduro was not legally elected. He should not be in the presidency as of this moment. He is a usurper of our presidency. Guaidó's only job as of now is to be interim president, to host new elections so that we can have a fair democratic process. And that's what we strive for. That's what we need. Guaidó is quote unquote next in line because that's how our constitution is written. When there's a gap in the presidency, the president of the National Assembly becomes the interim president. And that's what we want to do. We want to restore the democracy in our country so that we can have free and fair elections, which Guaidó might not even run. He's not the end-all president of Venezuela. That's not what he's supposed to be. He is a placeholder to host these new elections. That's what his job is. And that has nothing to do with the U.S. getting involved. That's how our constitution is written. And that's how it's supposed to be. That's the fact of the matter.
What would you like the U.S. government to be doing, sort of, if anything? Or are they kind of on the right track, just acknowledging Guaidó?
Take these people out. Just take these people out.
The U.S. supporting Guaidó and recognizing him as the rightful next step in our democratic process is a big step, and the U.S. is not alone. The U.S. is not the only country who has recognized Guaidó. There are more than 50 countries who have recognized him as the legal person in charge as of now. And so what the U.S. is doing in helping us, even if just from a distance, even if, saying that they support us and that they support our democratic process, is more than enough for us to keep moving forward.
Is there anything else anyone would want to add? Or?
We want those people out right away.
So one thing that I think, so many people think that, there's oversimplification in every side, right? But what we've seen is that many people say, if you want to change in government, just go and vote for it, right? You had an election, vote for it. It's not as simple as that. People oversimplify this, and what we have to understand is that what we're living in Venezuela is not a normal dictatorship. This is a new type of dictatorship, a new dictatorship that takes control of the democratic institutions and makes use of it to hold power. So it's not for Venezuela. We've been trying to do this the right way, by voting, by protesting, by doing everything that is in our hands to make a change in Venezuela. And right now, even this situation is by constitution is a law. So just get informed, okay? And if you have any doubt, just ask a Venezuelan, because it's really simple to just make judgments from outside, just reading a tweet or reading a news article. Just ask a Venezuelan, okay? Just as it's really hard for us to understand some things in this country, and we have to ask someone who has lived through it. Do the same. Ask a Venezuelan who has lived through that.
We love socialism in America. So wonderful. You see how offensive that is? That is a group that has killed thousands and thousands of people, and they are supporting. They continue to support murderous regimes.
Here's your picture. Right there is your picture.
You are seeing the
See
smiles.
her picture. Look at
You
her
are seeing the
picture.
smiles in
Look
their
at her
face.
picture. Right there.
That's her.
You are seeing
right
the
there.
smile.
That's her.
You are seeing
That's
the smiles
her.
in their
That's
face.
her. Look at her picture. Look at her picture.
You see the smiles in their
That's
face.
her. That's her. You
They,
see?
They don't care.
That's
You
the
see
kind
how
of people
you see
we
how
see
they
inside.
enjoy our suffering. We are suffering from this because our families are there. Our families are in Venezuela. Our families.
Anti-imperialism.
You see how it is.
They don't care. They don't care about Venezuela.
They look like
care about
psychopaths.
anti-imperialism, which is fine. That's on them. That's every right to do that. Venezuela cannot be a scapegoat for their cause. That's not what we are. We are a country fighting for our democratic process, and they're using this as a platform to fight, and that's not right.
It's extremely patronizing when people that have never been to Venezuela can't name 3 cities in Venezuela, don't know the national anthem, don't even know how many stars there are on the flag, and then they come and spew this like pro-Madurista, pro-Chavista like propaganda, and they're just appropriating our cause. Like, this is a grassroots movement in Venezuela, and the fact that they're saying that it's a CIA-backed coup is like, it's a slap to Venezuelan democracy. Like, this is a Venezuelan cause. They have no right to appropriate it. No right whatsoever.
One thing I heard her use the term socialism, and Guaidó himself is part of a member
Yeah.
is a member of a party
Yes.
that is part of Socialist
Yes.
International.
Yes.
To be clear, can you kind of explain like where Guaidó's politics actually kind of fit in? I realize that in the American spectrum, it's a
Yeah.
little confusing,
So
perhaps to some people.
It's kind of difficult to look at it at a Venezuelan, at an American perspective, because if you say opposition to Maduro is so and so a socialist dictator, therefore it must be a right-wing coup. Well, no, in Venezuela, opposition and normally right-wing would be all considered left-wing politics in the United States. Therefore, like, they have no, it's just they hear trigger words and they're using that to like kind of come to this conclusion that it's a fascist fascist movement, and it's not. In Venezuela, like, a majority of the parties tend to be left-wing U.S. politics. It's just they're using the terms right-wing or like opposition to kind of appropriate it and say, no, this is another example of U.S. intervening in a left-wing revolution. Which, no, you can't generalize that kind of thing in the United.
So for you, like Guaidó is very like different from, for example, like a Pinochet.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not
Because that seems to be
That's not even
kind of the
close.
comparison or like the language that I'm hearing from
Exactly,
that side.
and
So I just
they're
wanna
saying-
flesh out
That's why we're really mad about this, because there's a lot of misinformation. It's what you said. Guaidó's party is from the Socialist International. So saying that this is a right-wing coup is absolutely stupid. It's absolutely
And in
stupid.
the same way that I said, Guaidó is not going to be he's not, this isn't him being president. This is him being the person in charge of hosting new elections. Guaidó can be whatever party he wants to be. His job is not to exert politics, it's to host a new election to start our democratic process. So regardless of what Guaidó's policies are, that has nothing to do with what we're fighting for.
Right. And again, like, there are many other countries apart from the U.S. that are supporting this. It's not only Trump, it's Trudeau from Canada, are all European Union
the Lima
countries.
Group.
The Lima Group. So, I mean, oversimplifying this is just, okay, it's just Trump and a coup just for oil. That is not how it is. It's just not as simple as that.
This has been a very interesting conversation.
right?
So in a way, I don't want to like end it as we're
Just ask.
like live, and
Just
I've got
ask.
like 250 people watching actually. One of the things that's interesting that I'd love you to sort of respond to is I feel like in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like a lot of the fighting has been about like platforming, right? There's not too many times that it's been like pushing, punching, whatever, but there's a whole lot of like, you know, I'm interviewing you guys and then someone walks by and sort of yells at you. But that certainly happened in both sort of directions. Can you talk about kind of the role of like optics, platforming, interrupting of one another, that sort of thing? What does this sort of fight look like on the street, you know, on this block in the last few weeks to you?
I think a lot of the optics have been, you know, a lot of demonizing the Venezuelan group and making us look like something we're not, like how we had mentioned, making us look like a white supremacist group, making us look like a group that doesn't care about inclusivity, about diversity, which is not the case at all. We, as a group we are not an organized organization. Like, we're not. CODEPINK is an organization that has been in place for many years. We are a group of Venezuelans who live in DC, who live outside of DC, who come from other states, who come from other places to come support this, because it's something that is personally affecting us, and it's something that affects us, all of us. They are here because they're an organization that is against U.S. imperialism, that is against whatever they want to be against. but they're using us as that. And so that's what their optics are, is making us look like thugs, making us look like mobsters, because we are preventing food from going in. Well, we may be preventing food from going in, but we're not preventing them from leaving. And that's what they're making us see.
That's the only way that we've found to be in control of this, to try to get them out of there. So if that's not the way, then what's the way? Okay? So that's the only way that we've found to actually pressure the people inside, pressure the government in order to do something about this, because this is insulting to the Venezuelan community.
And we see those people that passed us just a few minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
They were inside for more than 40 days.
Yeah,
and
no,
they
I
were
recognize
free to
two of them.
they were free to come out and you see protesting. They are free to do that. So those four can do the
They make
same.
themselves martyrs. They make themselves victims for a cause that has nothing to do with Venezuela, as I've mentioned several times. We have prevented their food, but they are more than welcome to come out. And by saying that we are, they use a lot of optics in saying that we're against them eating and they need humanitarian aid, etc., etc. Venezuela needs humanitarian aid. They have all the aid they can get. They are more than free to leave, and we encourage it. Absolutely, we encourage it.
They have the safety net of being able to leave. They have the ability to leave and to go up to M Street and go to Starbucks or whatever they want. Venezuela, there is no safety net. There is no food. There is no medicine. There's nothing. They don't have the safety net that the people inside say that they need. Therefore, calling this a humanitarian crisis that we're preventing humanitarian aid from going in, that's disrespectful to the people actually dying and actually have families that have died and just struggling through so much. So how dare they? Really, how dare they say that this is a humanitarian crisis?
A comment I keep seeing, and it kind of reflects something I hear on that side, is to talk about oil. How do you see the role of oil? From their perspective, they see it as the U.S. is backing Guaidó because Guaidó will have favorable policies on oil to the U.S. How do you sort of see the role of oil in this conflict, if there is any?
I mean, if you want to talk about oil, why don't we talk about Russia, Cuba, China, and all the politics that that oil has had on the Venezuelan situation? There's been corruption. Being a petrostate means that there's a huge influx of cash money. Therefore, there's huge amounts of corruption. So saying that the U.S. is just going in for oil, sure, that might be a political play, but you can't say that that's the only reason and that no other country in the world's been doing it for the past 20 years. So no, it's just no.
Like Russia is also in Venezuela because of oil. China is also in Venezuela because of oil and geopolitics. But I mean,
and we can take those issues to the
Right.
to the
So-
White House and Congress.
Right.
In here, we're protesting for our
Exactly.
space that belongs to Venezuela.
And actually, so the CODEPINK and ANSWER Coalition and these organizations, they keep saying that they are here to prevent a war, right? Actually, they are doing exactly the opposite. Because by being here, if they wouldn't be here, right? Vecchio would have taken control of this embassy just as he took control of the military what do you say? There are other buildings in DC that belong to the diplomatic to the Venezuelan diplomats, and we already took control of those. We're only missing this building, which is the embassy, right? But they already took control of those. So if they wouldn't be here, then the tension between the U.S. government and Venezuela's regime wouldn't be as it is right now. Right now, the situation is that if Trump gets inside and takes these people out, Maduro already said that he would do something in U.S. embassy in Caracas. So, but this is only happening because they are there. Because if they weren't here, then Vecchio would have taken control of the embassy long before, just as he took control of the other buildings, and nothing would have happened. They are the ones who are going to cause a war, because Trump right now has in his hand the opportunity of doing something here, and if he doesn't do it, he's going to look bad. He's going to look as weak. And we really know that Trump is someone that makes really stupid decisions just based on whether he looks weak or not. So you are making Trump making a stupid decision to get in war just because he wants to look like a strongman.
You mentioned Russia. Do you see the Guaidó side, I guess, as a repudiation of the Russia sort of side in the geopolitics here? It's interesting because you have certain countries supporting one side and certain countries on the other. I guess the CODEPINK side seems to be sort of repudiating American foreign policy. Do you see Guaidó as sort of repudiating Russian foreign policy? I don't know if that made sense. But
If I understand your question correctly, I don't think Guaido is gonna follow the Russian path of like being in there for oil, of doing things, for the benefit of giving oil to the U.S. Like I said earlier, Guaido's only job right now is to start our democratic process. Guaido's policies are null. They have nothing to do with what he's supposed to do, as is our constitution. And so whether the U.S. is getting involved for oil or for whatever other politics that he wants to put into place, the fact of the matter is that with the U.S. backing Guaido as our rightful interim president is enough say to the world that this is how our democratic process is supposed to go. So the U.S. doesn't have to do anything. They're supporting us, and that's what matters. They're recognizing us as an institution, as a state that is trying to restore its democratic process.